Morning, Creekside family. Hope everybody's doing well out there. Fortunately, we're still not together. Still miss you guys, and um, but today I decided to do the sermon from the sun porch here at Mom and Daddy's house, and I chose this room in particular because uh, I have it has some sentimental value to me because I associate the room with my grandmother. Um, some of you may not know. My grandmother lived with us, or we lived with her growing up most of my life, and so it was like I had two moms growing up, which nowadays would be a totally different conversation. But back then, it was just I just looked at my grandmother as a second mother, and of course I had a good relationship with my grandmother, and unfortunately she passed away quite a few years ago. But I still think about her a lot and wonder what she would think about stuff going on nowadays, and um, what advice she would have, and just wish I could talk to her and ask her questions now that I'm older to about history and different things. But um, the theme of this, what I'm going to talk about today, is the relationships, and there are many different types of relationships um, in the world, or in our lifetimes. The relationship between a grandmother and her grandson, for example, or a mother and her kids, or um, people that date and have relationships. People that are married definitely have a relationship. We have a relationship, among friends, and even though I consider y'all more family than friends, there are people we do have, friendly relationships with. Um, so that's just what I wanted to talk about a little bit today. And the key to any good, and most important of all, we have a relationship with God. That's what I wanted to focus on, that and mothers. Um, but the key to any good relationship is communication. And I looked it up just to be thorough, but pretty much everything I looked up had either communication at the top spot or one in the top three for successful relationships. And most of us know that naturally, with because if you're married, if you don't have good communications, the bills don't get paid, and it's headache and everything else. But so most of us know that naturally. But well, a lot of times as Christians, we don't think about it, or at least I never really did until a few years ago. Was um, our relationship with God, and how we got to have an honest communication with Him. And I think that He expects us to have that with Him, and I think He expects us to tell us. Um, he expects us to tell Him how we feel about things, and to be honest, I've had quite a few you know not pleasant conversations, or not, no, I won't say not pleasant, but just questioning conversations with God here lately. Most of you know, or all of you know, that me and Jessica separated, but I don't know how. Some of you probably know, but a lot of you probably don't. That it's got to the next stage where we're going to be getting a divorce, unfortunately, and that's tough on me because I never thought I'd be somebody that would get a divorce, and so I've had um, frank conversations with God about do I waited 40 years to find somebody that I thought was special, and that we could work everything out, and now it's frustrating because it didn't work out, and I'm kind of like, what's going on? I waited all this time trying to find somebody good, um, and now I'm back to square one basically, and I so I question God on that, and I think that He's okay with that, and I think that He understands that, and like I said, I think He wants us to talk honest with Him, instead of just hiding behind prayer or whatever, because it's important to pray, but for me anyway, a lot of times I got caught up into praying properly and everything like that, but it's easier for me just to have a conversation with God, but anyway, it's been frustrating. Then, as part of an offshoot of that is that I'm living here with mom and daddy. Um, that thankfully they've let me, stay, and it helps me, to kind of get caught up on things, um, and it also, helps mama, to keep her spirits up with her, illness and stuff, and but but part of that being here is that I see her how much she's hurting now. Where I only saw it, on the weekends or every once in a while before, but I see her, see her crying in pain a lot of times, and I see her, get frustrated and not be herself, and that makes me angry, and it makes me angry, I told God that it makes me angry that my mom's always been this person that does everything for everybody else and not for us, not for herself, and now she's suffering like this, and it's not fair, and so I told God that, but the most important thing to remember, you can have a frank conversation with God, and you can have an honest communication with Him, but you do have to remember that He's God, He is sovereign, and that His plan, He has a plan. So I don't know what's going to happen, after this divorce and stuff, but I do trust that God has a plan for my life, and and I trust that God has a plan for Mama. She's going through this for a reason. It's just not fun to go through these seasons, if you will, but of trial and stuff. But um, you know, at the same time, though, I think Jesus, is he may the answer may be no. It may not get better as far as me and Jessica may never get back together or whatever. But and there may be like I said, there may be a reason I'm going through it. But at the same time, I do think I have a picture in my head that when I'm talking to Jesus, that He's got a tear rolling down His eye, because I think He does feel our pain, even though the bigger picture may be more important. Um, and to me, it helps me to remember that Jesus went to and prayed to God in the garden to take this burden off of Him, and didn't want to go to the cross, and um, the answer to that prayer was no. And He went to because He had to go to the cross to, you know, for us to be forgiven of our sins. So that's important to me, for me to remember. Um, so just to me, it helps me to try to sit and just imagine Jesus sitting in the chair next to me, and that's how I talk to Him. Because I struggle with prayer, because I start losing my train of thought and my mind wanders. But if I'm actually having a conversation, it and picturing the person there, it helps me to communicate with Him better. And that may help some of y'all too. One of the key relationships in our life, though, is with our mothers. And like I said, when this video comes out, it'll be Mother's Day, and I've talked a lot about my mom in the past, and y'all know how I feel about her and everything like that. But mothers are very important in our lives, especially for boys, And it's real telling to me that when when somebody's wounded on a battlefield, like when these big tough Marines and Army guys are injured on a battlefield, they oftentimes call out to their moms for their mamas, and that's because we associate mothers with love and with nurturing and caring for us, and mama can make it better. A hug from mama can make it better a lot of times, and so I know there are some people that grew up without good moms, but the majority of mothers, I think, are good. And I just want to thank all y'all that are out there that have been around and been like secondary mothers to me and stuff too. But the role of mothers is very important, and I've told this story a million times, but I guess it won't hurt y'all to hear it 1,000,001. But when I worked at Toys R Us, I was working with a guy on overnights, and he, my mama called and she said, asked me something, and I said, okay, love you, bye, and or love you too, or whatever. And she hung up, and then she called right back and said what she had to say, and I said, okay, love you, bye. And the guy asked me, he said, do y'all say that like every time? And I was like, yeah, why? And he was like, he kind of sat there for a minute. He said, I've only heard my mother tell me she loves me one time in my whole life, and he said don't take that for granted, um, because of you may not always have your mom, and he said, or you could have had a mom like mine that don't care anything about me. So that kind of really opened my eyes up to how special my mom was in particular. Um, because that's the mom I know. But and I've never not felt loved, even when I've put her through trials. And I did my fair share of rebelling when I was younger, and nothing too crazy, but crazy enough that there were times that I hurt her, and but even then I knew that she loved me and stuff. So, but I can talk about mothers all day long, and um, I can tell it from a son's perspective, but I'll never know what it's like to be a mother. So I wanted to get some other perspectives on here of what it feels, means to be a mother, and so I asked some ladies that have an association with Creekside in the past, but no longer attend there or don't attend there every time, to answer some questions for me about mothers, and I'm going to turn it over to them real quick, and then I'll be back to close it out.
Forever ago. Um, but these are the answers to my questions that I was asked. Question number one was, what does my mother mean to me? And my mother was my rock. She was my best friend. I don't really know how I've made it this long without her, just to be completely honest. But she was the strongest woman that I ever met in my entire life. She was diagnosed with breast cancer, and they told her that she had 2 years to live, and she fought it for 16. And she praised Jesus and praised the Lord every single day. She didn't let anything get her down. Um, so, yeah, there's that. And question number two was what I think the definition of a mother is, or what I think a mother should be. Really, a mother to me means sacrifice. It means putting the good of your child above your own good. Um, and not only sacrifice, but hope, because I made a lot of horrible mistakes in my life. Um, and now I get to raise kids and hope that they do a better job than I did. Um, of course, I straightened up and everything was fine. Um, it's fine now, but I hope that they don't make those mistakes that I made. So there's the hope aspect as well. And as far as what I feel like Mary thought of being the mother of Jesus, I'm sure it's very overwhelming, because you have, as a mother, you're always judged by what your children do, right or wrong. You can raise a kid right 100%, and they wind up going crazy like I did. My mom raised me right, but I went through a bunch of stuff in my youth and rebelled against all that. So, I mean, there's an overwhelming factor to it that, I'm supposed to raise the savior of the world, and so to me, I would be completely overwhelmed by that. But I don't know, and maybe also fear of the unknown, because she had an idea of what was going to go down, but I don't even think that she knew exactly what was going to happen. So maybe fear of what was to come as well. But those are my answers. So see you later.
Okay, so this is just a few thoughts about mothers and Mother's Day. So, what my mom means to me is she's a great example of being selfless and inspires me to be that way too. And so I guess that's part of why we got into foster care, and I'm a foster mother too. I've also learned that it's not about me. I'm trying to love on these kids, and when the mothers are willing and able to do the work to get their kids back, I also try to love on them and try to help them be a good example on being a better mother for their kids as well. When I think about Jesus' mother Mary, I always go back to the scripture in Luke 2:19, where it says Mary kept all these things to herself, holding them dear and deep within herself. And so that makes me reflect a lot on things around us and what's going on, and helps me to try to be a better mother myself when I think about how Mary really took those things to heart, everything that she saw, all the miracles and all the things that Jesus did. She just reflected on those to help her be a better mother as well.
Today is Mother's Day, and I was asked to do a video of what my mom means to me. If you had asked me probably about, 26, 25, 24 years ago, I would have went, but now my mom is my best friend. My mom is someone who does not judge, no matter what. She loves us no matter what we choose to do, and she supports us no matter what we do. She does give us her opinion, but for the most part, she does support us in everything we do. Also, I was asked to say what it meant for me to be a mom. For me to be a mom is I am the sole provider for a child. Even after they're 22, 23 years old, they still call me for help, and I guess I have more children than I've gave birth to. So that's real important to me for kids to look at me as someone they can depend on. Also, I was asked what I think that it meant for Mary to be the mother of Jesus. I would hope that I never feel that pain. I could never imagine standing there watching my child go through the horrifying torture, death that Jesus had to go through for us. So, on this Mother's Day, Mom, I wish you the most happy Mother's Day. And to all the other mothers, thank you for everything that you do, because I am sure that us as children don't tell you enough. I love all of y'all. Happy Mother's Day to everybody.
Hi, I was asked to answer 3 questions. The first one, what does my mom mean to me? My mom. This woman worked 2 or 3 jobs when I was growing up so that we could have food, clothes, activities, all that we needed, and some things we wanted. She wasn't perfect, and she let us know that. She also taught us how important church is. We were always in church. She has supported me every step I've taken, and I wouldn't be me without her. I watched her fix cars, change tires, and mow the grass. She showed me I could do anything I wanted to do. She instilled in me a love for everyone, children, old people, animals, everyone. There were always other people in our home, and always pets. I pray that I am half the mom she has always been to us. She's my hero. What does it mean to me to be a mother? Being a mother means lack of sleep, laughter and tears, never getting a whole drink to yourself, feeling the pain of someone else deeper than you feel your own, heart bursting with pride and joy, fixing broken toys, broken projects, and broken hearts, wearing holy shoes so your kids don't have to, creating people, meals, celebrations, and adventures from inside your heart, crying at your own failures, laughing at expectation versus reality, sitting through band concerts, soccer games, and track meets, hearing, "Mom, I'm gonna throw up" in the middle of the night, even though Dad is right there. Late night homework sessions, early morning field trips, being on call 24/7. Most of all, finally understanding what my mom meant when she said, "I love you more." Also, being a mother means filling in gaps where others haven't had a loving mother. This is maybe the most important gift given to me as a mom by my mom. The last question: what do you think Mary felt about being the mother of Jesus? I love this question. For the past several years, I have thought so much more about Mary. When we got the boys, it took me about 2 days to love them as my own. When they left us to go back to their biological families, we were willingly giving them back. I felt Mary so much more than before, and every time I heard of them being hurt or neglected or mistreated, I would think of how Mary had to have felt watching her son be hurt. While Jesus experienced all the physical, emotional, mental abuse, Mary experienced it as only a mother could. However, she also experienced the pride in knowing that her son willingly sacrificed himself for this world. I'd say that had to give her some comfort through the horrible pain. So in a way, Mary is like all of us moms, loving our kids with all that we have, no matter the cost. Just like us, I bet she'd still choose to be his mom if she was asked. And I sure appreciate Mary for that. Love you, Creekside. Happy Mother's Day.
Okay, thank you, ladies, for being willing to do that. All of them mean something to me or have a special meaning to me that participated. I told Tammy that she was one of the first people I thought of because even though we're relatively close in age, when we were in youth group, I always thought of her kind of as a motherly type that always kind of took, especially the girls, but the guys too, up under her wing and tried to kind of give us advice of what she'd already been through that we were about to go through, and just different stuff like that. And I told her that I see a lot of her in my oldest niece, that because they call her Mama Autumn, her friends do and stuff, and that means a lot. That's about the highest compliments I can pay to somebody, is to compare them to my niece, because I think a lot of her. But I thought what she said about Mary was, what they all said about Mary was very, very good. Sorry, my camera keeps messing up. We're having some internet problems, but it was very good. And it's to think of it from Mary's perspective. It had to be hard because we don't exactly know what all she knew and what she didn't, as far as what was going to happen to Jesus. But it had to be hard to watch her son tortured and die, and just mind blowing. I think something like Lisa said, that that the world was going to be saved through him, and there's a lot of responsibility in that. But it's just wild. I would it'd just be interesting to have a conversation with Mary just to see what she thinks. Maybe we'll get to do that when we get to heaven. But getting back to the relationships. It's the most important thing we can do to have a relationship with God is to love Him, to love Jesus. And in John, one of the, I think chapter 18 or somewhere around in there, Jesus, has come back, or been, risen from the dead, and he's talking to Peter, and he asked Peter, "Do you love me?" And you got to remember, Peter is just not too long ago denied Jesus 3 times, and so I'm sure that he feels awkward around Jesus in a way. I would, probably wasn't making a lot of eye contact. But he says, "Yes, Lord, I love you." And then Jesus asked him again, "Peter, do you love me?" And he's like, "Yeah, I love you." And, a little time goes by and Jesus asks him again, "Peter, do you love him? Do you love me?" And Peter says, "You know everything. Jesus, you know everything. You know that I love you." Well, basically, why do you keep asking me? Because which we know it was more for I think, for Peter's confidence and, Jesus' way of letting Peter know that he was forgiven for denying him and stuff. But just that says a lot to me. What would I say if he asked me that? And of course, I'm going to say I love him, and all of y'all would too. I assume. But let's be honest for a few minutes. We love sin too, if we're very honest with ourselves. There's certain sins that everybody has that we love. There's sin, particular sins that I love and so I don't always give God 100%, and that's something that's going to always be a challenge for us as humans, but we need to work on, because a lot of times we want to keep just that much sin, and I saw it illustrated in a way where a guy took a bottle of Coke and a bottle of milk, and one of them the milk represented Jesus, and he was like, "I drink some Jesus, and I love Jesus," and then he'd be like, "Well, but I love looking at bad stuff on the internet," and he would drink. And then he said, some of us, we want to just be okay. We'll pour just a tiny bit on top of the thing so the Coke sits right on top of the milk, just that much of it. And we want to say that's okay, which, Jesus don't like God don't like any sin. So we got to try to give, everything to all our love to God and stuff. And Francis, a lot of that is us admitting that we have sin in our life and we need confessing it, and that we need to get rid of the sin. So Francis Chan, who's a preacher that I like, he told the story of being the speaker at a youth rally at one time, and he said that he got up and he gave his talk, and they got to the point where they asked people if anybody wants to come forward to anything, and this 18-year-old guy come up and he says, "I just need to get some stuff off my chest to my church." And he said, "When I was a freshman, y'all thought I was a leader, but the whole time I was looking at pornographic material on the internet." And he said, "Then in my sophomore year, I started dating a girl, and the whole time we were doing things we shouldn't." Just put it that way. I think we're all adults know what I'm talking about. But and he said, "Y'all thought I was a leader. Nobody knew anything about it." And he said, "Last year, I started dabbling in homosexuality." And he said, "I was curious at first, and I got further and further into it. And then it got so deep that I tried to get my brother involved into that lifestyle as well." And, Francis Chan's like sitting there holding the microphone. He was like, "I can't believe this kid's saying this. He said, these kids are going to eat him alive in here." And he said he looked up and about 30 of them were rushing the stage, and he thought this is just going to get ugly. But they got to him, and they just started hugging on him and loving on him and praying with him and stuff, and he said, he said he was just blown away by the power of God, that, and the braveness of this young man to say this. And he said he got the guy alone somehow later on, and he asked him. He said, "What possessed you to get up in front of thousands of people and tell that kind of detail and stuff like that?" And the guy said, "Mr. Chan," he said, "I didn't care what anybody at that moment. I didn't care what anybody else thought, except for Jesus, because that's who I was talking to." And he said, I needed Jesus to forgive me. And
Hello?
sorry, my Siri's always trying to talk to me, but he said, "I need Jesus to forgive me." And that's how we don't have to do it necessarily publicly like that, but we need to be honest with ourselves, and so we can have that relationship with Jesus, because that's what he wanted. Or the kid said he cares more about a relationship with Jesus than he does about being embarrassed for things he's done. And Francis Chan also said that him saying that opened it up for more kids to come forward and with stuff similar to that they had that most of the time we're afraid to talk about. But our relationship with Jesus is important. Our relationship with each other is important too. And hopefully, not too long from now, we'll be able to get back and go eat at Jack's and Zaxby's and stuff and fellowship together. And I know it's been a struggle. I know I won't name the person because I hadn't asked them if I could, but I know I talked to somebody the other day that's a member of Creekside that's really struggling because they're isolated, because of the COVID-19 and just starting to feel it because it's going on six weeks now, and we just gotta stay strong and make sure we're staying in touch with each other, and that we let everybody know that we love them. If one of the things about being on a video is it's hard to have a chance for people to come forward, but if anybody has anything, you can call Charles or some of the other people, Charles Swindle even, me, you can call me, Don Loki, just anybody. There's always somebody you can call and talk to. If you don't know us, if you're watching this on our website and you don't know us, then feel free to email us or send it to the webpage. It's that's why we're here for, is to encourage each other in Christ and to love on each other and to help each other when we struggle and to be honest with each other. And hopefully you got something out of this. It is Mother's Day, and I have a few more people that want to say something, so I'll turn it over to them, and after that Keith will have a song. So God bless y'all. Y'all have a good day.
I love you, Grandma. You mean the world to me.
Happy Mother's Day. We love you.
We love you.
Grandma means a lot to me because she always makes me smile even when I don't feel good, and she always just brings the best out of me. And I don't know what I'd do without her. Love you, Grandma.
Happy Mother's Day, Granny. We love you.
Hey, Mom. I just want you to know I love and appreciate you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful Mother's Day. I love you. Bye.
Happy Mother's Day, Grandmama. I love you so much, and I wouldn't be the woman I am today if it wasn't for you. Mwah.
Hey Mom, I just wanted to tell you happy Mother's Day and that I love you so very much and I hope you have a wonderful day. Love you again and thanks for everything.
Grandma means to me everything inside my heart because she's like the greatest person that I know and everything. I love her so much. And that's how much I love her.